Hi, Pretty Little Lifters. Welcome back to the Pretty Little Lifters podcast. Today I'm joined by Brittany Hammond. Brittany Hammond is a NASM certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor based in Los Angeles, California. She has worked in the fitness industry for the last 8 years and believes in a holistic approach to wellness. Brittany is also a writer for the last 4 years and has contributed to many wellness articles like Well+Good, Health, Verywell Fit, Livestrong, PopSugar Fit, GoodRx, and more. I've had the pleasure of being a guest expert for one of her fitness articles for PopSugar on plyometrics, and I met Brittany at Lift Society, where she currently coaches. Now let's welcome Brittany to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Brittany.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you, and I would love for you to introduce yourself to everyone. I did a cute little intro before you came on, which you can hear later in playback. But yeah, I'd love to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and like what you're currently up to professionally and personally.
Awesome. So my name is Brittany, and I am I'm a fitness coach and fitness writer. I have been coaching for probably the last, almost 8 years. I've been a coach, and then I've been writing for about the last 4 years, coming up on 4 years. And so I'm passionate about fitness, wellness, educating people about fitness and wellness and coaching it, and being a part of the experience of people just feeling strong. So that is what I do professionally. Personally, I love to read. I read a lot, and I just, if I had all the time in the world to read, I'd probably just read. But I read. I have a cat that is my joy, and also the most annoying thing that I have.
I saw you post your cat in your stories the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, so cute. They kept coming up on you when you were trying to read.
Yeah. He's I was working, and he's under my armpit, and I'm like, I really love you, and I think it's so cute that everyone's like, oh my God, how cute. I'm like, yes, but I need my arm, and the rule is you don't move. Once they're on you, don't move. So I have a cat that I love, and just pretty much I love to read, and I love to just kind of relax. I'm crocheting. I picked up my crocheting again for the first time in a long time. So that's just my life. Pretty simple.
I love that. So I would love to hear more about your fitness journey and how you got into coaching, where that excitement and desire came from, because I know you're really passionate about it. Mm-hmm. And then also maybe sharing your educational background of how you got into writing and specifically in the health and wellness space. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So coaching, interestingly enough, was never on my radar. When I first moved out to California, I moved to Corona, California. If anyone's familiar with that, Inland Empire. I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. I knew nobody except for my coworkers, and I had worked in a company that had 2 other people. So it was me and 2 other women, and so I didn't have a lot to do. And so I started walking a little bit, and then I was like, I'm gonna do couch to 5K. So I guess now it's called C2 5K. It's now all they've updated it and made it a cooler thing. But I did couch to 5K. So I just started kind of run walking. And at the end of every time, I'd walk back to my apartment, because I'd only get so far. I wouldn't be able to run the whole distance. So I'd only get to a point where I'm like, all right, can't do anymore. So I just turn around and start walking back. So I started walking back, and I would start this prayer time. So I just talk out loud to God, and I'd be like, God, what's up? What's up, homie? What are we doing here? Just kind of having my chats. And so I journal after that. And one day I journaled, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm supposed to coach, or I'm supposed to teach people, or I'm supposed to inspire people. Because as I was starting my fitness journey, and mind you, I was 31 when I started this. So I wasn't really very athletic. I wasn't very into fitness. I would work out for maybe a week or two, and I'd see, like, when you start seeing the results and you're
You're
like,
like,
yeah,
oh,
you're like feeling yourself. Yeah, you're like feeling yourself. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. And I would just stop working out. So this was like the first time that I was consistent, and I would post about it because I'm like, if I post about it, it means I did it. And so I kind of would post about it on social. And so people would say, oh, you're just really inspiring me. You're making me want to work out. And so after that, I got this like download from God that was like, you should be like, you're going to coach, or you're going to be something like that. And I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And I kind of I wrote it down, and that was it. And then some years later, I was ready to leave. I was working in the radio industry, actually. I was in marketing, and I was ready to leave. I was like, I got to get out of here, but I don't know what I'm going to do. So why don't I? And I was like, I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to just go, because my brother was in LA. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to LA, and I'm just going to figure it out. So I moved there, and I had a friend who knew or worked at Orange Theory. I had a couple friends in Houston, where I had moved here from. And so, but I'm from Denver. So I've been everywhere, but I'm from Denver. But so I was living in Houston before I came here, and I knew some people that were with Orange Theory. And so I said, do you happen to know anybody? I know you kind of go to the conventions and things like that. And he said, actually, I do think I know somebody. I'll introduce you. So he connected me with someone at Orange Theory. And that person was like, I don't have anything at this particular studio, but we just opened one in Northridge. Do you know where that is? I had literally just moved 5 minutes from the location that had just was opening. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is
you're like, it's
wild.
destiny.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I reach out, they interview me, and on the spot, the woman's like, I love you. You're great. And this was just to be a front desk person, because I had no fitness experience at this point. I just knew I was like, this seems like a fun job. Everybody who works at Orange Theory loves it. I'm just going to work there. So I got hired on the spot, and they're like, you're in. And so I was like, all right, cool. And then over time, some things happened where a coach did not show up for their shift early at 5:30 a.m.
Ooh.
And yeah, and I was working the front desk, like little me, just like, oh,
You're like, ready? Put me in,
yeah, I'm just
coach.
I'm working the front desk, and I'm like, everyone who, if you work up or work out at 5 a.m., 5:30, like, you woke up to work out, you're
Yeah.
like, I need to do this. So everyone's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know. And the coach is like, I'll be right there. Can you just start the class? I'm like, sure. And at that point, I'd taken so many classes. So I kind of like started it. And this happened I promise you, never happened unless I was at work. So it just was this thing, this like divine. So it happened a few times where it happened with different coaches. And then people were like, why aren't you a coach? I was like, I don't know. I'm not certified. And so I ended up getting my NASM, and just really that, then from there, I became a coach. So it was it was a very odd entry into being a coach. It wasn't, it was in my journal. It was in this idea and this vision that I had, but it wasn't the vision that I had, right? I didn't know how I was going to get there or what that was. And at that point, I kind of forgot about it. I just knew, like, I wanted to work at a gym. I could get a free workout. So I'm like, I can't afford fitness, in this town. So how am I going to get free fitness? Cool. I'm going to work at a front desk. So this wasn't at all in my brain at the time. I'd written it down, but it wasn't in like purposeful. It wasn't intentional that I got into fitness, and it just really flowed. And ever since then, people who are like, oh, I want to get into fitness. What did you do? How did you do? I'm like, it was really kind of a fluke. I mean, like, now I know it was so meant to be, and it feels like the most true and honest and like fitting place for me ever. But when I started it, it just was this idea that kind of I wrote down and moved on with my life. And so it really was that, as far as getting into fitness. So I got my NASM, and then I kind of coached ever since. And then with writing, actually, it was during COVID and all of the uprising of Black Lives Matter after George Floyd. And so I was a journalism major in college. And so I do enjoy writing. I know how to write. That's been something I've done forever. But I did broadcast journalism because I was like, I'm going to be the next Oprah at the time. And so, grand visions. And so an editor from Livestrong started following me randomly on Instagram. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Like, after I saw her bio, I was like,
Yes.
that's neat. So I follow her back. And then, and at this time, I had no idea of anything. I just kind of thought it was cool. And I followed her back, and then she posted that they were specifically looking for writers in the fitness industry of color. And I was like, I'm a writer of color and
You're
I am
like,
a fitness
I'm
instructor.
here.
Yeah, I was like, okay. So I reached out to her, and then kind of from there, it's been, from there I went Livestrong, health.com, PopSugar. Well, yeah, it's not PS now, but PopSugar, GoodRx. There's a couple others that I've written for. But it just kind of spiraled into this other space that I was able to kind of marry my journalism degree with my fitness knowledge, which again, I never had that in the vision or anything that I
Yeah.
thought of, but it really just worked out perfectly. And, and here I am now, but it was not anything I ever thought for sure.
Yeah. The thing I love about your story is I think it's a really good reminder. Like you said, at like 31, that's kind of when you were
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm getting into fitness and I'm going from couch to 5K and like all of that. And I think that's what's really cool is like sometimes I think that people think like you have to have it figured out when you're like college age or in your
Hmm.
20s. But I think that's the beautiful thing about like evolving and having different skills. Like you already had these journalism skills, right? And it's
Yeah.
just really cool to see this, like how they kind of presented themselves in a different way than maybe you would have ever thought.
Hmm.
But I love for women to hear stories like this because I also think like in the fitness space, they think of like you have to be in your 20s to start
Oh
fitness,
yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
and a lot of the coaches are in their 20s.
Yeah.
But there's space for 30s, 40s, 50s plus. Like it's never too late. You could be in your 60s and get into
Yeah.
fitness, and you don't have to be a former like athlete or this or
Hmm.
that. Like there's so many avenues because at the end of the day, we all have a similar goal of wanting to get people to move and to enjoy it
Yeah.
and to feel healthy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of I think being in LA specifically, that was one of the more challenging things for me when I began. I mean, when I started, I was 31, so I was a little bit more like, I guess, age appropriate, quote unquote. But like as I went in my career, newer, younger people were coming in and I'm like, oh wow, I could be like, I was your babysitter, like I'm
Yeah.
that age that I'm older. And so, it definitely, especially in LA, it just felt like, because it's a career in LA. A lot of other cities or places where I know fitness instructors, they're teachers, but they do fitness on the side, or
Yep.
it's kind of this side career. And here it is a career. So you see people maybe in different stages of life doing it. But for a while, I was like, oh my God, I'm old. Like I can't do, and I did get into that kind of space in my mind of like, I'm too old to be doing this, or, maybe
Yeah.
maybe I could do that when I was in my 20s. And I do find myself still saying that with like, especially with the like back to back to back sessions that coaches are coaching. I'm like, yeah, when I was in my 20s, I'm like, now I'm almost
You're like, I
40
had
and
that energy.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, now I'm almost 40 and I don't have that anymore. And so there
Yeah.
is a little bit of that does change a little bit as we get older. But I definitely, I did cheerlead for a year, but like my senior year of high school, but I was a theater kid. Like I
Yeah.
did musicals and I mean, that's where I
I
was. I was
love
on,
that.
yeah, I was on the stage. And so, and you can see that in my coaching, like not
Yeah.
maybe necessarily at Lift Society because it's a little bit different, but at Orange Theory, you can tell I'm the theater kid. I'm the like performer. I'm the
Here we
like, I just,
go.
yeah, like I want you to work out and I want you to be safe, but like mostly I want you to have a good time, because if you don't have a
Yeah.
good time, you're not coming back. And so like my philosophy, I think, in training, again, obviously safety first, and things like that. And like, I want people to move and I want people to be strong, but I want you to enjoy it. And I want you to have fun, because you're not going to keep it up if you don't have fun. And that at the end of the day is going to be the biggest detriment to your growth and to you
Yeah.
finding like, to building muscle and to doing all the things you want to do in your fitness life. If you don't like it, you're never coming back. And
Yep.
so that's like been my biggest thing. And one of the things that I love the most, because, I know there's coaches that have more like technical knowledge than me. I know there are a lot of people that love programming. I don't love programming. I've always worked
Hmm.
places that have programming worked in, because I like to present a product versus like come up with it. That's not my
Yeah.
passion. My passion is
Yeah.
presenting a product that um an experience.
And I think that's really good that you brought that up because there are so many different avenues in terms of fitness too. Like if you don't like programming, like how you were saying, like working at a place where you don't have to come up with it is gold for you, because for some people, like that energy, that like exactly what you were talking about, like having that energy and bringing that to the table, like that's the thing that people are connecting to, you know? And so you get
Yeah.
to spend your time building community and talking to members
hmm
and getting to know them. And like I witnessed that, like when I pop into your class, and like you know the members and you know their names and you're like chit-chatting with
Yeah.
them, and it's like that's that community building. So like myself included, like I share this all the time, like becoming a PE teacher, like I did not go to school with like kinesiology background, like
hmm
this is all new to me, but it's like, but I know all the other things I bring to the table. And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe somebody knows more than me technically, but it's okay because I'm still going to
hmm
teach an awesome class in a different way, you know, that's like more to my
Yeah.
abilities, you know?
Yeah.
One thing that I teach my students in PE and health, and I also talk about it on like this on this platform for PLL, is how important it is for us to be critical consumers of health and fitness content.
hmm
And there's so much conflicting health and fitness information out there. And honestly, like I can, like you and I have talked about it in the DMs, but like
Yeah.
honestly, I can see why people are confused and overwhelmed. And since you are a reputable like fitness and health writer, can you walk us through the process of like how you write an article in terms of research, fact checking, like are sponsorships involved or
hmm
promoting certain products, and like what do you do, or like how do you stay authentic? Like what pressures might you face? Like anything like that?
Yeah. So when I write an article, typically I'm writing, for the most part, I'm not writing about any products or anything because I'm not a consumer writer. Sometimes I do get products, get an opportunity to write about products. Um, and I'll speak to that in a second. But when I'm talking or writing an article, I mean, most of the things I'm looking up are like .gov websites, like anything that are studies. Like I'm always looking for studies, and most of them, which is wonderful with these, require you to cite studies, cite sources. And obviously, when you're looking for things like that, you do also have to look at what are like who paid for the study, and there are things that can
Mhm.
affect the study. So you do have to be aware of that when you are doing things like, oh, this was like if you're going to write for example, something about milk. It's like this was paid for by milk. Like
Yep.
it needs to be aware that that is what's happening. And I think that at the same time, you also have to be aware, just like any documentary, you can find evidence or background for anything you want to prove, really.
Hmm.
Especially again, based on who pays for it. So there are so many different things out there. And ultimately it comes down to, for me, I'm like, okay, well, this seems the least biased, because at some point, I mean, everybody's got some sort of bias, and there's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit in everything. But trying to find the least biased things, and when you do studies, for the most part, I mean, they have to disclose if it, what are any contradictions or anything that could affect the study. So really, just paying attention to those types of things. When it comes to, if I do talk about a product, so there might be times that I'm like, oh, I like this product or this class, for example, like I tried it when it comes to a class, but I give my honest opinion of the class. Do they, they pay for you to go, or not, like not the publication doesn't pay, but the brand. So say XYZ gym wants me to go to their class, like I would try their class and I would just be honest about it. And obviously I'm not going to trash a brand if something like, but I will try to find the positive. Even if I didn't fully enjoy it, I might say like, this might be great for somebody who has this, or this might not be so great for this. And there are definitely things that, for me, I'm really passionate about diversity. And so I have been honest with certain brands that have reached out about asking me to try something and saying, to be honest, I look at your website and your Instagram, and I don't see anybody that looks like me. I don't see different body
Yeah.
sizes, and I don't see different skin colors or abilities. And I don't feel comfortable doing that, because I don't believe, for me, that I would have I mean, I might have a positive experience, but I don't know that I would have positive things to say for other people.
Hmm.
So I am careful about that. And if I do look at something, I'll research and look at someone's like Instagram page. And if I think like, ooh, this does not reflect me, or I don't see anybody that looks like me, I will 100% not, um, I will 100% not be a part of it. I've did that with a panel that I got invited to, and I wrote them back and I said, I don't, I did research the people and I saw one woman of color and I don't see anyone that's either black or brown. And, you know, that concerns me. So I am
Yeah.
honest about those things, and those things do play a part in what I see. And then as far as product, if I don't like it, I'm not going to talk about it. Like if I don't use it or I wouldn't genuinely use it, I'm not going to talk about it. Like I have gotten lots of things for free, which is one of the wonderful things about
It's a perk.
yeah, it's a wonderful perk of writing about things, is like you might get something for free and you're like, sweet, and it's great. But at the same time, like if I'm not going to actually use it, I'm not going to talk about it, or I'm not
Yeah.
going to promote it, because I don't believe in, like, I don't want to be somebody who promotes these things that I don't use. And especially with like once TikTok was ending, you saw all these influencers like, oh, I have a secret, like I don't actually do
Yes.
this, I don't blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
what? And so I don't want to be that person. And I don't want any to ever feel like an ad, like I'm selling things. So I'm just really careful about talking about what it is that I use and being honest about it. And if I truly don't think it's a good thing for my audience or for people or for me personally, if I can't see myself championing this product, I won't usually
Yeah.
talk about it.
I love that. I love that you are very aware of your values and what aligns with you and your personal brand and your reputation as a writer. And I think that's really, really important. And I like the red flag tips that you shared. So yeah, because I just feel like, and like I said, we've talked about it in the DMs, like there is so many conflicting articles and information out there. It's like you could find it. But I think that point that you brought up is really good. Like you can find support for whatever you're thinking. So if you're thinking this, you can find something to support it. If you're thinking this, you can find something to support it.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to find the studies. I think I truly do encourage people, if they read something or see something, like go on and do your own, like if you type in sumo deadlifts and studies, like it'll give you studies on these things that are done by, the National Institute of Health. I mean, you can find those things that are done by scientists, and you can do your own research. And I think that's one of the disservices we do, is we just kind of like repost because we're like, I saw it, I read it. This person said this study says this. And it's like, you can also misrepresent a study. It's like you cherry pick from the study what fits your narrative.
Yep.
And that's the other concern, is like, I can find something in a study and part of it fits what I'm saying and another part doesn't, but I'm just only going to like put the part that says what I believe or what agrees with me. And then the other part may say, but, it might say, oh, we found that you should do XYZ, but this is also effective. So people are only showing or writing about, we say you should do this, and they're forgetting but this is also effective, because
they're like, this does not exist.
Right. I mean, it's like, it's cherry picking. It's like people who pick things from the Bible to fit their narrative, to hurt other people. It's like we do these things and we take things out to make things fit what we want it to say, so that it can like get, I mean, at this point, views, money, things like that, which is unfortunate, but that's what people are looking for. And so you do have to do your own research. If it's something you're really passionate about or something you question, you're like, that sounds kind of weird, or that kind of sounds kind of off, like check. Because chances are, if you have that feeling of like, that doesn't seem right, like it probably isn't. So I would encourage people just double check. And the great thing about articles like that I write, we have, there's most publications have fact checkers or people that kind of like are on medical boards that do go and like behind and double check everything, especially like
That's
I know
great.
There's like Health for sure and GoodRx have like in-house checkers, and Livestrong did as well, like doctors, things like that go in and actually check and make sure like, all right,
I love that.
Like this is all like good. So you can usually take anything you get from Type of Fitness publications versus sometimes the influencer stuff that just fits what they want it to fit.
Yeah. And that's a really important thing to know, like accredited publications who are getting those things fact checked because they have to, versus people who can just go online and say whatever they want. you know.
Yeah.
So you recently wrote an article that showed up in my inbox for Lift Society's blog, and
Yes.
you wrote about 3 strength training myths. And these are myths that I'm continuously trying to bust, like for people on my page and my students and all of that. So I thought we would chat about them here. So
Okay.
people could hear them one more time, you know, because you can't bust these myths enough. So the first myth you wrote about was lifting makes you bulky. Can you
Mhm.
please bust this myth for us?
Yes, yes. Lifting does not make you bulky. So I think, well, mostly this is a myth that women go to, because I think men would love to be bulky, and that's the
Yes.
thing, is that
Yeah.
if it's that hard to do, like anything a man chooses to do in the fitness space happens very quickly. Like, you want to lose weight, a man's like, oh, I cut out like alcohol and I've lost 10 pounds in a week, you know?
Yep.
So if even a man can't bulk himself up, like, what as a woman makes us think like, oh yes, I can do that too? So I mean, or that's going to happen to me. So what we're really looking at is like, to bulk, because yes, is it possible? Have you seen women that have bulk? Yes, that is possible. But the time it takes, the diet it takes, it's almost impossible for anyone who's just a regular, like, I work out 4 to 5 times a week, to achieve. Like, we're not eating the ways you would need
Yep.
to bulk. We're not training the ways you would need to bulk. So that is just not something that's possible. Like, you'll get muscle, and you will, anytime you decrease body fat, you get muscle, and that's how you uh, see definition. But you're not going to bulk, because you're not doing anything. Again, it is possible, but you have to be very intentional, and it takes a lot of time for that
Yeah.
to happen.
And I think you made a great point there. Like, the average fitness goer, like, this probably is not going to happen
No.
for you. Like, I have been trying to add
Right,
some bulk,
exactly.
and it's just not
Exactly.
happening. And I'm an avid fitness goer,
Yeah.
and I'm still waiting for these biceps to pop,
Right.
and they're just
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
happening for me.
Yeah, it's like, I wish it happened. I mean, most
Yeah.
people who train wish that bulking happened. I mean, like, the people who are afraid of bulking aren't people working out.
Yep.
Because if you actually worked out, you'd be like, this
You'd
is
know.
impossible.
You'd
Like,
know.
this
You'd
is
know how
impossible.
hard
I
it
can't
is.
bulk. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't, no matter how hard I try. So,
And
yeah.
I'm over here losing muscle, so I'm trying to actively build muscle.
Yeah.
So it's like, when I hear people afraid of this, I'm like, do you understand? Like, let's break this down for you. All right.
Yeah.
So myth number 2 is you need to spend hours in the gym to see results.
You do not. You do need to train hard, but you don't need to spend hours. So you do need to work yourself getting to fatigue. You do need to lift heavy weight to have that. So if you're going in and you're just doing like, 30 minutes of really lightweight,
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing something, but you're not gonna have quite the results that you're looking for. And it depends. Not everybody has the same goals. So depending on your goals, but if your goals are to build muscle, to decrease body fat, so that you can see that definition or that tone, then you need to be lifting heavy. So when you don't need a lot of time, but you do need to be working to like your full potential. You do need to be finding like, I cannot lift one more time. Like, if I you're finding that last, and you've talked about it in your
Yeah.
in your stories as well on Instagram. It's like, and you posted like that last
That
rep of
last
that last
sticky
set
rep where you're like, come
"Ah!"
on.
and your like arm is like shaking, and you're like, I don't know, and I'm like grunting when I'm doing it. I'm like, like all
Yeah.
that sound and air is coming out of me. Yeah, you got to be working to that, but you don't need to be that off. Like, you don't need to be there all day. Like, you can, I mean, most classes are an hour, right? But you could do like 45 minutes, and that be more than enough if you're working to your capacity. And I think people love to be like, oh, I was at the gym for 5 hours or 2 hours. And it's
Yep.
like some kind of, status. Like, it's a status to be able, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of time. So
I don't anymore.
great if you do, right? Great if you
Yeah.
do, but like, most of us don't have hours to be spending in the gym.
Yeah.
And great thing, you don't need hours. So
Yeah. No, and that's such a great point, because when I was like early in my CrossFit days, I was there for like 2 hours because I was just so excited. But I was also an elementary school teacher who was like done with work by like 2:30, 3 o'clock.
mhm.
And I had nothing to do after work, and my partner at the time was like working in the evening. So it was like, what do I do? Okay, I'll hang out here with like my friends and Lyft.
Yeah.
And I was putting in all this time, but then when life circumstances changed, I was like, I don't want to be here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
is fun, but like, I want to go like do something else. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
stuck indoors for 2 hours. So that was a big shift. And like, yeah, was my performance different? Sure. But like health and fitness overall, like I was fine with like my 5
Mhm.
hours a week,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's
Okay. And our final myth number 3 is strength training is only for athletes.
that is just not true. Anybody can strength train, and everybody should strength train. Strength training is so much more than athletic ability. It, increases your bone density, which, especially as we get older, and especially in women, is really important to have those stronger bones. Muscle functionality. I mean, if you think about what you're going to be doing the rest of your life, bending down to pick things up, if you're older, should you have grandkids, lifting kids above your head, opening doors? I mean, there's like anything you could possibly think of.
Yep.
Even just getting up and down from the toilet. I make jokes all the time in class, and I'm like, I'm training so I can get up and down off the toilet when I'm 85 without like help,
Yes.
without assistance.
Uh-huh.
So it's not about being an athlete or using these skills to, I'm not gonna be in the 2028 Olympics. So I wish there was something
Yeah.
I was good enough to be, and because they're in LA, I wish I could, but I'm not going to. So it's about everyday function. It's about longevity. It's about keeping myself healthy as I go on. And I would much rather spend time resistance training now and keeping myself than like spending time in the hospital later in life or a doctor's appointments all my life. Like, it's just, you don't want that. It's
Yeah.
like it's more important um to have a healthy lifestyle and to choose that lifestyle now, than to wish you would have. And so yes, I mean, you could be an athlete if you want to be like, oh, I play pickleball or I play tennis. Like, that's athletic, and that's an athletic thing to do, but you don't have to use your strength training to do athletic things. You can just do it to walk around, get up and down the stairs. Like, that
Yes.
is enough.
And I think that's such a great point, because I think it gets lost a little bit. Like, people think it's for aesthetics. Oh, and then when you get older, you're like, who am I trying to impress? I'm not here for aesthetics.
Hmm.
But it's like, no, you get to a point where you're like, this is for function. This is for
Yeah.
longevity. And I think sometimes, like, we see with like older adults, like once you get like 50 plus, they think like, oh, I used to do that back in the day when I was younger. And it's like, you still can and you
Yeah.
should,
You still should. Yeah.
You still should. So I think there's that thing of that this is for young people. And it's like, no, this is lifelong, because these are the movement patterns you're doing in your daily life. So like, let's get them
Hmm.
strong. So I'm really glad you brought
Hmm.
that up.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So my final question, and it's the question I ask all of my guests,
Mhm.
is what advice would you share with your teenage self and teens today?
So this is not super fitness related, but I would say to spend time learning to love yourself. Because one of the things that I have struggled with personally has been, I am someone who really thrives off of validation from others. Like, I love to hear you did a good job. I love to hear like you're the best, and I've learned this as I've transitioned out of coaching at Orange Theory, and being used to hearing those validating words. I'm learning more and more that it's okay to hear validation. It's wonderful. Validation's incredible. But if you don't believe that inside first, it does not matter what anybody else says. And I've spent a lot of time um, recently, like changing that narrative for myself and having to go back now and teach myself self love, because I didn't have a lot of it, because I needed other people to tell me how worthy I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so self-worth and learning that when I was younger, it would have changed a lot of things in my life. And it would have helped really way early on had I had that. And I just didn't. And so I would say learning to love yourself, date yourself, like take yourself out, like to brunch or lunch or the movies, like go by yourself. um, Invest in yourself, invest in affirmations. And I know you do a lot of that, but like I now have affirmations written on my bathroom mirror that are like that I say every single morning. And I have to remind myself every single day how much I matter because I matter, not because somebody else says I matter. So I think that is like the most important thing that I wish I would have known or learned earlier in my life, because now I'm trying to like play catch up, and I'm trying to learn to love myself after a lot of things have happened. And it's a lot easier to love yourself when nothing's really like nothing too serious has happened in your life yet.
Yeah.
Like you're still, getting it. And then it's like once you've already gotten and you have it and you're already like in this like you're in the rat race, you're in this like this is how I've always done it. To try to change that is really hard. It's really hard to try
Yeah.
to go back and be like, okay, I didn't love myself for all this time. Now I actually have to go back, and I'm 39 years old trying to learn
Hmm.
self love. It's
Yeah.
really hard. It's really hard because the old voices have been there for so long that trying to get those to shut up so that I can love myself the way I should, it's really hard. So I
Yeah.
would say do it now. Love yourself now.
Yes.
Like, don't let anybody else tell you. And if anybody else tells you you're not good enough, leave. Walk away.
Yes.
Like if anybody ever makes you feel like you're not good enough or like you need to do more or like you need to earn their love, if you ever find yourself trying to earn somebody's love, if I just do this, if I just change this, I can't tell you, I found a journal from when I was younger about if I change this, if I did this, if I do this, these are the things I'm going to do. And if I do this, he's going to love me. In an old
Hmm.
relationship, a high school relationship. And I wish at that point I would have said, this is awful. If you're writing
Yeah.
like a list of how you can change you and what you can do to make somebody else love you, he's not worth it. And so
Yeah.
I wish, and again, not just in a relationship, anybody who makes you feel like you need to change who you are for them to love you, bye. Like it's time to
Yeah.
go and you need to move on and go love yourself. So
Yes.
I wish I would have known that.
Oh, I love that advice. And the reason I love it too is obviously I work with teens and like I see that. And some of our kids, it's like you care so much. Like a lot of them care what other people think and that getting that validation. And that's something that, I'm working hard to like help them uncover, all
Hmm.
this self-love that you're talking about because yeah, like actually it's funny because I don't know if you know your love language. I'm guessing it's words of affirmation.
Hmm.
Um, but
It's my top one.
that used to be my top one. And it's funny because finally, like in the last couple years, it's switched. And
Mm,
it's because I've been going to therapy and putting in the
yeah.
work. And now it's
Yeah.
acts of service. And I love that for me. But
Yeah.
I definitely loved that validation, loved hearing that praise. And now I'm like in a place where I'm like, even if nobody tells me this, like I know this is good and I know I'm
Hmm.
important. And it just like feels really nice to be in that spot. But it took a long time. Like I'm 41 now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah. It takes a really long time, and yeah, it's hard work. It's really hard to change the narrative that you have had for so long. That's why it's like for me, I'm like it's so important to do it early because you can
Yeah.
change it still. It's
Yeah.
harder to change when
100%.
it's harder to change when you're 40. But when
Yeah.
you're 16, it's like I could do this. I could change this. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that advice. And Brittany, thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining us on this
Thank
episode. I
you.
am so grateful for you. I'm so happy we met. And I'm so grateful for all you are doing in the health and fitness space. You are an amazing coach and you are a wonderful writer. And I am so glad that we've been able to connect.
Me too. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for listening to the Pretty Little Lifters podcast. And I'm going to share Brittany's info in the show notes so you can support her. And I will talk to you next episode. Bye.